we're going to go ahead and get started. So if y'all want to take your seats. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Ryan Gale, and I'm the Accommodations Coordinator here at the Office of Disability Services. So we have a very special guest today here this afternoon to talk about his experience, talk about access and disability, and also FYI tonight he'll be performing, so hopefully any of you that like music, like rap, bring your dancing shoes, come, stretch it out a little before you come, warm up before his concert, right? Okay, yes, and bring some water. Well, if you bring a lot of water, you're going to get hot. So, okay, so we have a special guest. His name is Warren Knight. And hopefully you've heard of him. I heard about him in Jamaica. He'd come to Jamaica and did a performance and a talk there, and he travels the world performing as well as talking. He's been to many different countries. I met him again when I was in Washington, D.C., and so just so impressed by his work. He's an awesome musician. He's here with his DJ Nakar. And so Wawa is deaf. DJ is hearing but signs fluently. And so he's here today to talk about his experience. And so it's my great pleasure to introduce Warren Wawa Knight. And so his performance name is Wawa. So let's give him a round of applause. I'm going to move my chair just a bit here. So a lot of you are kind of spaced throughout. It's like a diaspora here. Did you want it that way, or are you afraid of one another? Why are you guys spread out? If you want to move towards the center and a little closer, we can all get it all together, sing a little kumbaya with one another. So yeah, you want to move in a little bit? Yeah, I don't mind, feel free at the front row. Everyone can see back there? Can you all see me? Thumbs up if you can. Can't? All right, do you prefer if I stand? Can you feel a little better back there? Yes? No? Maybe? Okay, is this good? I might end up sitting down and standing up and then you miss my info. So my name is Warren. This is how you decide my name. Everyone calls me Wawa though. I was born and raised in Philadelphia. I was born deaf. And I do have a deaf heritage. I didn't know until college that I have deaf family members. But prior to that, I grew up. I was in a mainstream school. Does everyone know what a mainstream school is? What that means, that concept? And so growing up, at the time, there were no IEPs, there were no student special services for students, and so I never had that. I was unidentified in this mainstream setting. And so the way I got through school is basically I was self-taught. So I'd have these books, and I would have notes, and that's all I got for instruction as far as my education goes. How many of you are taking a sign class currently, taking an ASL course? So, is any one of you who aren't taking it, are you interested in learning sign? Okay, good. Got some people out there. Okay, some of you, I can see you signing already, so that's great. And so just imagine right now you're in the deaf world, and there's a hearing instructor talking. Most of the time when I was sitting, I would sit in the front row. The person was not signing. I would attempt to lip read. And I did okay. I kind of got by. I'd clarify once in a while with my classmates. I had my notes to go along with my book, and so I got along, and the teacher was talking. But once the teacher turned around and looked at the board, I got nothing. There was nothing that was said was readable on the lips. And so sitting there, usually I was like this. Yeah. Oh, wait, okay, like I'm falling on. Oh, wait, no, okay. Wait, okay, the back is turned. Okay, yeah, now I'm with you. And so that was what I looked like in my classes and what my classmates saw me doing. That was my experience. And so there are a lot of deaf people who went through this. They never received any of these IEP type services. They never had interpreters in school, even though they were mainstream. They didn't have note takers at the time. There weren't things in accessibility accommodations that were provided to them. And many of them felt really lonely. You know, and growing up, I did feel that way. You know, and there were things that were really boring, and through school I was pretty bored, I'd fall asleep. Lunchtime was fun, more active, but as time went on, got through my schooling, really I fell in love with music. And this is back then, and so a lot of the musicians, typically, it was like hard rock, rock and roll, R&B, rap, those were the genres, and I couldn't tell which was which, you know, because to me they all sounded the same. And really it was the beat that I was listening to, you know, whatever it was slow or if it went fast, or that's really all I could pick out. And so I knew there was those two types, slow versus fast, and time went on. I do have a sister, my mother, my aunts, uncles. They would explain to me, they'd say, no, it's slow, and this is so-and-so, and this is who. And so I was able to then identify the different genres of music. And I was able to pick them out when I heard them. And I realized, okay, I like R&B, that's more my style. Rock and roll, pretty good. And then later, it was hip hop for me. Okay, so I'm not that old. I was into hip hop. And at the time, I mean, through the 1960s, hip hop hadn't even been invented yet. In the 70s, but you know, in the early 70s, it wasn't around. And some of you were like, wow, I couldn't imagine you're that old that you're like pre-hip hop. Yeah, so don't be surprised, I am maybe older than you think. So in the 1970s, this is how we signed hip hop, that sign was coined. And so it came on the scene, and finally there were rap groups, there was a lot more going on, and it really had a beat. It had strong bass. And there was a rhythm that I found that really matched what I liked. And so I would listen to it with hearing aids on, and without, not so much. And so as far as the lyrics, I didn't know what they were saying, but I could access the bass and the beat. My mother and my sister would write down the lyrics for me, and so I would try and read along with the beat that I was feeling, and so I could understand what the artist was trying to say. And so I was trying to imagine, you know, and I'd say, hey, what's this song? What are they saying here? And so my mom and my sister were always writing down the lyrics. They got a little sick of me, and so I had to find another avenue to access that music. And so, and again, I'm thinking I may be the only deaf person or hard of hearing person. You know, I can speak, I do speak for myself pretty well sometimes, but I felt like I had to read lips to understand people. And so in high school, when I was a senior, I had an English teacher, and then the person said to me, you know, there are other people in your similar situation, you know, and I was like, yeah, right. There's no one else like me. I felt maybe I was the only deaf person being in this hearing school. And then high school, as a senior, I had been accepted into 5 different universities. I was accepted to UCLA. And this was on a full gymnastics scholarship. All right. I was like, okay, wow, you know, UCLA, gymnastics. I got in. But the English instructor had sat me down and said, you know, I just want to talk to you. You know, there are other people out there like you. And so I just nodded my head like, yeah, sure, whatever. And so what she did is she brought her daughter in. Her daughter was deaf. And at the time she was 11 years old. The daughter was 11, and so I met her, and she says, you know, she communicates through sign language. And I was like, what? What's ASL? Are you guys fine without the microphone, or do you guys need the microphone? Sure. Yes. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, good. Great. Okay. The power of the voice. Okay, so back to the story. My senior year, my English instructor wanted to talk with me, and she brought in her daughter, who was also deaf. She was 11 years old. And she had said, you know, do you understand what sign language is? My daughter uses that. I had no idea what that was. And so what she did is she signed with her daughter. She signed a sentence to her. The daughter signed back. And I thought it was Morse code. I was like, oh, they're doing Morse. You know, and I was like, huh, okay, yeah, I can do that. Let me just tap up the things. You got it? Did you understand that? And so seeing that, and I told her that, and they explained, no, it's not. It's sign language, and there are other people like you who use sign language. It's a visual language using the hands, and they actually have a whole university in Washington, D.C. You know, I learned later it was Gallaudet University, but she explained that this university is here. And you can learn there. You don't have to feel lost. You don't have to feel different. You have peers there. Everyone has had similar experiences as you. And so I went ahead and I applied to Gallaudet. But again, UCLA had accepted me, and I had that really in mind that I was going there. And then once accepted to Gallaudet, I was kind of thinking about both of them. And with UCLA, this is a full scholarship. You know, it's in California, California girls are there, the beach, you know, all that really great stuff. Or I thought, you know, I could go to Gallaudet University where there are people just like me there. I wouldn't have to feel lost, I wouldn't have to feel alone. You know, there are people who can understand me, where I'm coming from. And so I had these two choices. You know, what was the best decision for me? It was Gallaudet. I never looked back. Went to Gallaudet, and of course I didn't know any sign language at the time, none whatsoever. And so they put you in a program called NSP. It's a new student or new signer program. And the program is only 3 weeks long. It's prior to the start of the school year. So again, 3 weeks, not a lot of time. And the program had 5 different groups, and they alphabetized them. It was group A through E.
I could sign pretty good. And then I got around students that they could sign. I mean, they're signing and then they're signing. And it took me a while to adjust to that. But as time went on, I realized I had an identity crisis. Was I deaf or was I hard of hearing? Where do I belong? I was in the deaf world, and so like I could still talk on the phone. I could still use English. I could still communicate. So where do I belong? Who am I? And so I would talk with other people, and they would identify as hard of hearing. I asked my roommate, and he said that I was deaf. And I told him that, you know, I can talk on the phone, I can talk with other people, I can hear what's going on around me. I wear hearing aids, I am hard of hearing. But my roommate made a bet. He said, I bet you $1 that you are deaf. Okay, I'll take you up on that. So we went to the library, and we looked up the definition in 5 different dictionaries. We looked the dictionaries all out. And part of our bet, so he said, I want you to pick any dictionary and find the word hard of hearing in the dictionary. And so me with my eyes, he was like, okay, fine, I'll take you up on it. Picked up the first dictionary, flipped through it, got to PHs, see it, put that one down, picked up the next one, flipped through that one, and went to the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and I couldn't find the term hard of hearing. So I went to the Oxford Dictionary, the Webster's Dictionary. I looked in all these different dictionaries and couldn't find them. And so my roommate said, okay, so remember our bet, our bet for $1. Now look in any dictionary and find the word deaf. Okay, well fine. Pick up the first one and I found it. And he asked me, so tell me what it says. And so I didn't want to tell him. I finger spelled the word. I didn't want to sign it to him. He didn't understand me, so say that again. And so I finger spelled it again. And he said, come on. Work with me here. And the definition said little or no hearing at all. And and so I thought about that and thought about how that applied to me. And so finally I conceded, and it was kind of hard for me to believe, but it was good. So my roommate also, suppose you go to someplace and you start talking with someone and you miss people. You miss what they're saying. And so, you interrupt them and say, oh, I'm sorry, could you slow down? Could you say that again? I'm trying to lip read. But people would say, well, what's wrong with him? And other people would always say, well, I'm deaf. And deaf, that term kind of just stuck. And so I really came to own that identity, and realized that I wasn't alone. I really wasn't hard of hearing. I really was truly deaf. And it was kind of complicated for me because I enjoyed music. As a deaf person, I didn't think I was supposed to enjoy music, whether it be rap or anything else. So I thought, well, I would try signing different things. Try joining different clubs. I had a dance company that I got involved with that. And I really had that passion for music. I really enjoyed rap and just really the lyrics. And so I tried making music on my own, just kind of going with that. I would write lyrics, and then I would perform them. So I'd get up and I would sign the words and speak the words at the same time. But while I was performing, they would stop the music. And I thought I was so good. So this is kind of what I look like. So the music would stop, but I would keep doing my act like that. I'd keep going, and someone would have to say, by the way, the music stopped. Well, why? Well, because that's not really deaf culture. And I was shocked. Do you think, I asked them, do you know what this sign here means? It means that you think like a hearing person. You're a hearing person in your mind. And then that's what they would call me. And they say, oh, you're trying to be like a hearing person right now. And it's really offensive to our deaf culture. And that really got to me. So I was thinking I'd have to shelve my music and just focus on dance or focus on signing until another person came up in my life. A deaf rapper. And at that time, he would sign rap. And I was doing that years before him. But he was so ahead of his time. And so people looked at me and said that I was ahead of the time and that I should really think about doing this rap thing and kind of this performance thing. So I took it off the shelf and I kind of started playing with it again. And I thought about how a deaf person could produce music. So I ask you, do you know any deaf musicians? Who do you know?
Sean Forbes.
Sean Forbes. Who else? Who do you know?
Mozart.
Mozart. Okay. Two. Anyone else?
Steinmark.
Beethoven.
Steinmark. Right. There's a third one. Beethoven.
Not Mozart.
Oh, right. Not Mozart. Not Beethoven, yeah. So, okay, so there are a few. So not so much Mozart, but Beethoven. Sean Forbes, and That's his sign. So we have these three people here. So Beethoven, Sean Forbes, and Seymour. Beethoven he lost his hearing later in life. So we've named three, but really there are about 20 deaf musicians out there. Did you know that there are deaf opera performers? There are jazz musicians. There's Mandy Horsey that does jazz. They're in Colorado. And it's beautiful music. There are R&B singers in Japan. And in Jamaica, there are 19 and 20-year-olds that do music there. Here in the U.S., we have pop singers in Washington, D.C. And so we have all these musicians around. And I'm a deaf rapper.
There's another guy in DC as well, but the point is, we're looking at Seymour and Sean Forbes, and people thought that's it. They're the only two, they're famous, there's no one else out there. But that's not true, I'm out there. And so my job is to let you know there are more people than just me. Some people are underground that you just haven't heard of yet. You know, and so how can you find them? How can we identify who they are, where they're at, and what they're doing? And that's where I come in. I started a new movement looking at hip hop, but I changed the phrase hip hop to dip hop. And what dip hop means, hip hop through deaf eyes. And in today's culture, there are a lot of people that know about hip hop, hearing culture, you know, hip hop's out there. But for deaf culture, it's a little different, and it's a different perspective, it's a different culture. And so we're not going to do it the same way that the hearing culture does that. That's like the Matrix. There's the red and the blue, and so which side are you on? So when you come into our world, it's a whole different game, and of course it is, it's a whole different culture. And so we signed this for dip hop, and I'm trying to push this concept out there and let people know there's a new music genre now called dip hop. And so if anyone asks you, feel free to spread the word. There's a lot of actors, dancers, artists. There are people that are out there in the entertainment world and the art field that are deaf, but very few of them are musicians. There's a woman in England named Eden. She's a drummer. She's a deaf drummer who is phenomenal, crazy skilled. And so there are many people out there who are deaf, who are entertainers and artists. And so I started a company called Slide Key Entertainment. And what Slide Key means is signing like you know it. That's what it stands for. Signing like you know it. And this is helping us to identify deaf and hard of hearing rappers, singers, performers, giving them a bit of exposure, giving them a chance to perform so that people know about hip hop out there. And you guys can help with this movement too, because some of you feel like, okay, I don't know what, I can't really, what's your sign here for Google? Do you guys have a sign for Google out here on the West Coast? Okay, there's a lot of different options I see. No, none of them? No, you guys asleep? Okay. So, are they awake? I don't know. It's like, I don't know. You know the sign for Google? I don't know the sign for Google. And so, I'm sorry, I'm just picking on you a little bit. But okay, and so you can do a lot of different things to help this movement. You know, you can look for deaf rappers and deaf people looking on Google. There's some articles that have recently been released and published about this movement. You can promote deaf artists, see if you like them or not. It'd be nice if you spread the word, let people know about what's going on and what we do. And so, you know, if you like my music, you think it's great. You know, I had given a show 3 years ago called Swag, swagging out. And so I hosted a show at Gallaudet University during the homecoming week, and so I rapped, I performed, I did my thing there. After the performance, there was another performance the next day, and that's where I met DJ Nakar, who's sitting right there, waving at y'all. And he's originally from California. He's West Coast boy. He's like, hey, what's up? You gotta stop that. Okay, and so he is a producer. He's a DJ, producer, and he does a lot of different things. And I've heard about him, through the grapevine. I'd known his name, and people had always said, you should contact this guy. And so finally, the two of us met. And after the performance, we met. And usually I'll ask people, hey, did you enjoy the show? Most people say, yeah, it was a great time. They loved it. It's the best ever, the best they've ever seen. But he, Nakar, was like, yeah, your performance was good, but your music sucks. And I was like, cool, man, yeah, cool, thanks. Thanks for that info. That's something I can use. And so what I did then was, or he had said, I could work with you, help you with your mixes. I can help you with all of that stuff. And instantaneously, we collaborated. And that's been 2 years since then. We've been traveling, and things have gotten so much better for him because of him. If it weren't for him, I would have been in suck mode all this time. So I owe it all to him. He's been producing the music, helping with writing. He's got ideas we collaborate on. So while he's doing that, I'm also mentoring other deaf artists out there. There's an artist out there that I'm mentoring that goes by the name Polar Bear. And his name is actually Sean Self, but he goes by the name Polar Bear. And some of you are thinking, what? Polar Bear? Nice name, yeah. But yeah, he's a really big white guy from Atlanta, Georgia. He's actually very good at what he does, and I am very proud of him. And he's a senior at Gallaudet University right now, and really amazing kid. And so I am mentoring these individuals, helping them really hone their craft and getting the word out. So be warned, you're going to be seeing dip hop more often. If people are saying, oh, whatever, I know some people, I've met some people, it's pretty much going off. So we do focus on accessibility too. In the music world, it's really hard. And it's not fun when it comes to accessibility. They can be the meanest people you've ever met in the world. But they also can be the most amazing people you've ever met. And I think they mean well. They want the best. They don't want mediocre. They don't want just okay. They want wow. So anything that's new or anything they're not really sure about, they instantly push away. I'll give you an example. Washington, D.C. has a manager there. He's pretty popular. A lot of people flock to him. They audition for him. They want him to represent them. And so as far as networking, he's a great person to have on your side. So I finally got a hold of him, let him know who I was and what I was all about. And it's really hard to get a hold of him because there's a line out the door. He was interested in what I was doing. We had a meeting. I had the CD there ready. I introduced myself. And there was no interpreter there in the meeting with us. And really, I should have had an interpreter there. But, I'm kind of actually glad I didn't. And I can tell you why. So we played the music for him. He listened to it. He seemed to enjoy it. And before we met, I had recorded the music onto the CD, and so as we were going along, he was able to listen to that. And so afterwards, he said, that's not you on the CD. And he said, that's not you on the CD. So that's someone else. And if you can find that person, whoever's voice is on the CD, I'll work with the two of you together. And I told him, no, that's my voice on the CD. The music, everything, the beats, I made that, everything is all me. And so what I did was I stood up, put the music aside, and I did a cappella for him. and then signing at the same time, singing for him, said, no, that's not you. And he said, again, if you can find that person, yeah, I can work with the two of you together. You know, I can make something new, something no one's ever heard of before. I think the world might be ready for that. I'm not sure, but we'll see. And I had to convince him, this is me. There's no one else. You know, or you call me a liar? And he said, no, I'm not calling you a liar. But my niece is 5, and she can't speak, and she's deaf. And so I don't believe that's you if you're deaf. And I was like, dude, you're comparing me to your 5-year-old niece who can't speak. You know, it's really not a comparison. And so what I said was, you know what, kiss my ass. And I left. And so going through that, and because of that, I definitely was more determined. I was like, you know what, I'm sure other deaf people have gone through this too. And I heard stories that they had. And most of the people weren't even given a chance. They were just told, you know what, no thanks, goodbye. So that happens to a lot of deaf people. Or there are a lot of deaf people where others just don't know what to do or how to deal with them. They don't understand. They're like, you know, deaf people aren't supposed to be able to be musicians or enjoy music. You know, if you're deaf, how can you rap? That doesn't even make sense. And so it's really a process that I have to go through and that other people have to go through. And you know, it is a lot of work. When you see a final product of something we've made, this audio CD, you know, you really have to take that and take it apart and look at the music, look at the beats. We're feeling along while we're going, we're recording it, working everything out, we're writing the songs, everything. And when we're writing, we have to edit it, we have to make sure it matches with the music. And as a deaf person, I have to think too, how am I going to sign this in American Sign Language? You know, so I'm thinking, how can this be enjoyable for both the hearing and the deaf world? So it's not easy when you see this shiny, beautiful end product. And so sometimes Nikar is there with me, helping me. He's really my drill sergeant. Yeah, I admit it. You know, he's my producer. You know, he'll tell me this sucks. You know, you sound awful. Do it again. Do it again. You know, the way you're saying that doesn't make sense, and it's frustrating. But really, what the end product is amazing, and he's helped me improve so much. And some people can't handle that process, that frustration and stress and work. So I'm practicing how I'm going to sing it, how I'm going to sign it, we're producing it, making it match and come together, and then we have this draft, and then we have the end product. And everyone, you know, either they love it or they hate it in one simple decision. And then most people don't see all the work that goes into that. I mean, for one song, it could take maybe 3 weeks, a couple days, could take up to a year for just one song, and that really depends on the person, the artist making it, depends on the skills that they have, the skill set they bring into it. And so, you know, there's a lot of things that go into it, but the way the world is people want things so fast, they don't realize all this time and work that goes into that. But really, Nikar, like, you know, there's no excuse. Just do it. And this is where we agree to disagree. And again, it's a good thing, it's not a bad thing. You know, he is helping me understand. Anytime I disagree with him, I'm like, okay, you're right, you know, I do need to practice, I need to work this out. And sometimes he'll say, you know, people don't care what you're going through, all the work you're doing. They care about the final product, and that's it. And if you want to be the best, then you need to work hard. It requires that. And this isn't just about, you know, the music. You know, this applies to the students too. You know, you're working with coworkers. You know, sometimes there's a small thing that you want to do, and it becomes all this work and all this effort, but in the long run, it's worth it. There's a quote I like called, "Keep digging until you find the diamond." Have you heard that quote? Yeah, some of you. So if you can imagine that, there's a person out there just digging and digging because their goal is that diamond. And the diamond is just right there, it's ginormous, and they're digging and they're digging and they're digging and they're getting there closer and closer, and then they give up. They give give up and they leave it. They were that close to their dream. They could have had it. So the bottom line is don't give up. And many of us do that. Many of us give up. Is it a good thing, a bad thing? Really it's not for me to decide, it's for all of you to decide. Because you're all working on your own. You're working on your life and your goals. But talking about deaf culture, we have to sometimes work double to quadruple the amount of work that someone else has to do just to be on an even playing field with those that are hearing, or to even be better than those that are able to hear. So we are working really hard out there. Music's not easy. The process is changing. And if you want to be successful, or if you want to get to a place you never dreamed that you could be, you have to, have that motivation to do something. You have to do things you weren't willing to do before. You guys know who Drake is? Please say you have, please. You guys know who Drake is.
He has a song called Start From the Bottom. And we're here. We're here. Motivate you. Whether it's giving deaf people accessibility or just people with disabilities accessibility, you don't know exactly what they're going through, but help them out anyways. Sometimes people just brush them aside and just think, oh, well, we could just send an interpreter for them. I mean, that's all that they really need. Or, they're really blind to the real issues here. And really, any of that could happen to you at any time. Something could happen and you could lose your hearing or you could lose your vision. I mean, if you had to pick, which would you pick? Again, I ask you a question and I get this response. Some people would prefer to lose their hearing, and some would prefer to lose their vision. But some people have no choice. Some people have lost both. They have to deal with that 24/7. I mean, imagine being deaf and blind. Put yourself in their shoes. Think about what they're going through. I challenge you. I used to teach ASL, and I would challenge my students with this. They'd come into class, and I would say, turn your voice off and plug your ears. And try just 3 times. Go out in the community and just use sign or try writing to people. Don't use your voice. And they would do that for a day, and then they'd come back and we talk about what they went through. And you would notice a huge difference here. There's a difference between people who just have lost their hearing and people who just lost their vision, and then people who lost both. If you think about putting those two together, it's really a big thought. So I challenge you to try that. Try it. You can try it anytime, anywhere. And a lot of people who have these disabilities don't let those disabilities get in the way. I don't consider my deafness a disability for myself, and that's really important for me. Deaf people can do anything. I mean, it's like that quote that said, deaf people can do anything except hear. But it just means that we just have to work sometimes 2, 3, 4 times as hard. But with your help, with your exposure, with your knowledge of the culture, with other disabilities in general, we can make that process easier. And we can work together and figure it out. So do you guys have any questions for me? So why did you pick that sign for hip hop? So to start out with, so this is the sign for hip hop. And then to go down, that's the sign for dip. And going across is the sign for hop. And it kind of looks like the sign for bless you. But honestly, we founded Dip Hop and Psyche really for me because I wanted to show what was out there. I didn't want to be limited by what I saw. And so I came up with that sign for Dip Hop because hip hop was already established, but Dip Hop was something new, so I wanted to show that. Any other questions? Don't be shy. I don't bite, or at least I haven't yet. So I'll go ahead and stand up here. So you mentioned your family doesn't really sign. So since you have picked up a sign, has your family picked it up as well? So my family doesn't sign with me, but when I got to college, I had a fallout with my family. And I really wanted them to sign with me. We got into a big argument about that. And for 2 years, I didn't bother to go home or to see my family because of it. I am the oldest of 3 kids, and so when I did come to visit my family, I finally started to write letters, and my mother decided to learn a little bit of sign. She failed her first class. And her reasoning was because it was so boring. And so I told her, well, try just one more time for me. So she took the class again, and the professor of that class was a former classmate of mine. And they were talking about popular people in the deaf community, and my name came up in the class. And my mom was so surprised because that was her kid, that was her son, and they're talking about my son in class. And she got really worked up about that, but she figured out that I was involved with the dance company at Gallaudet. And the name of the company was Wild Vappers, and it was an all-men's dance group. And so I was involved with these different groups, and my mom's teacher told her that I was a musician and I was doing all these things. And he told her that you need to go and see him, and then talk about it to the class. We weren't talking at the time, but I called my mom and wished her a happy birthday. And she said that she was coming to my show. And I was taken aback, because what, you're coming to my show? And so, both of us were a little surprised, and she went ahead, she showed up, and she watched me. Growing up, I told you can't do all these things, and our family told you can't do this, you can't do that. And when I finally got to college and my mom could see my friends and my teachers, all this camp attitude that she had for the longest time, she still had a hard time believing that I could do that. So my friends and I decided, well, why not just mess with everything and pretend like we don't know how to dance at all. So night after the show, I did my thing in the show and all that, and my mom showed up and she was just amazed. She was just, she asked me, well, why didn't you tell me that you're doing this? Why didn't you tell me that you were in a dance company before? And I told her that I did, that I wanted to dance, but you didn't think I could. And so my mom got a real view of the deaf world, deaf culture, and her attitude changed. And now the two of us are incredibly close. And so that's just a story about my mom. Yeah, any other questions? So who do you look up to as a person, as a source of strength? Like, who's your role model? I have to say God. Yeah. Growing up, I didn't really have a role model, so I had to fight for what I wanted. I could see what other people were doing and hear what other people were doing, and I wanted to take bits and pieces from all of that, but really, the solid rock is God. So, yeah. Any other questions? You guys okay? I don't know, maybe we should give you some extra technicals or something. I'm here so that I won't get a fine. You know that? Have you seen that bit? Because, I'm here so I won't get a fine. That's kind of how I feel.
I was just wondering, for those of us that can't make it tonight, is it possible to hear a sample of your rapping?
Oh, I didn't bring anything to do that with me right now. Sorry. So what I'll do is I'll tell people to record it on their phone, and then they can share it with you. Maybe you can see it that way. I'll do it a cappella. You can do it a cappella.
Do you have a YouTube video?
Yeah, I have a YouTube channel with some of my music on there. So back to the acapella bit. Do you want it signed or voiced or what?
Both.
See, both.
So I'm saying, yeah, do it,
Both?
do it.
Oh, okay.
Do it.
So I'll give you a teaser here. You all can come back before the show. This one's about New York.